it is really time to admit something about NASCAR Cup Series short track racing. There's been so much package talk, so much tire talk about next gen Cup Series racing at short tracks and how they just need to improve the package or Goodyear has to bring a better tire. It is time to finally talk about how the car is the main issue in everything that comes with short track racing and basically just modern racing in the NASCAR Cup Series. It all ties back to the car. You can say Goodyear needs to bring a tire that wears out. Well, if there was a car that worked with that, they could bring a tire that wears out. You could say you have to fix the package. Well, really, they've gone down to such low downforce now at this point. They have, small spoilers on the back. They've taken off a lot of the downforce from the diffuser, and it's still not good. And you know why? It's because the next gen car just isn't set up for short track racing, right? I mean, it parallels 2019, and the fact that there's a large portion of the fan base that is like, oh, we can just fix the next gen car, it'll be perfect everywhere. It's 2019 all over again, where we brought the 550 package and NASCAR ran big spoilers everywhere. And what sucked that year? The different tracks. The unique tracks sucked. Short tracks sucked. Road courses sucked. Darlington wasn't all that good, right? The unique tracks suffer when the car is set up for the more normal mile and a half D-shaped oval type racetracks. I mean, 2019 Martinsville was the year where teams and drivers after the Martinsville race were like, yep, those tires could have gone 1,000 laps. Does that sound familiar? Because the next gen car has left side tires that could go like 300 laps at Martinsville, right? It's not a tire issue necessarily, it's a car issue. If the car has so much grip, so much downforce through the center of the corner that the corner speeds are so high and people are shifting and there's so much load on the tires, guess what? Goodyear can't bring a soft tire, right? They have to bring a harder tire that can withstand those loads. And unfortunately, we have a car that is just like the 2019 car, right? It is made for 550 style racing. I don't know how many times I can say that. It is made for 550 style racing. It was designed with that in mind. The car was originally ran with 550 horsepower at intermediate racetracks. It was made to be a new and improved 550 style package, right? But then they upped it to 670 horsepower, and we've got what we've got now, right? Diffuser on the back, more downforce under the car. It was set to narrow the dirty air effects that we saw with the 550. Wider tires, more grip through the corners so that they can try and run wide open throughout. No side force, no, skew on the car. Just made so that they can run side by side better, right? All this is made to improve pack style racing at the intermediate racetracks. And what it's done is it's ruined the unique racetracks. Gateway sucks. Pocono sucks. Darlington isn't as good as it should be. Homestead isn't as good as it should be. The short tracks are awful. The road courses aren't that great, right? Even super speedways lack at points. And really the only time they can move through the field is when guys are saving fuel, because that's an issue there now. It's it's not just, oh, let's fix the package. Oh, Goodyear just needs to bring a better tire, right? It's not that. It's just the car isn't designed to do short track racing. It's too advanced for NASCAR short track racing. The brakes are too good, right? The tires are too wide. There's way too much grip in the corners. The corner speeds are too high, right? You have dirty air because you can't get to the guy's bumper because everyone's going so fast through the corners. Everyone's running the same speed. It's a spec car, right? Short tracks are already the type of racetrack where the times are close. But the times are even closer now because everyone gets the same parts, right? Everyone has the same car that they just put together. So everyone's running the same times around the racetrack. If you don't believe that, during the Martinsville race, I at one point looked at my phone to look at the leaderboard. I was looking at the last lap time run. I'm scrolling through, and it is consistent 21 ones, 21 twos, and low 21 threes. Right there within 2/10. The whole field is within 2/10 of each other. Why is there no passing? Because everyone's running the same speed. How can you pass someone if they're running the same speed? And you may go and say, like, oh, well, we didn't have this issue at Bristol when Goodyear brought a really good tire that wore out, right? So obviously it's just Goodyear's fault. If they just brought a tire like Bristol, maybe if they just brought the Bristol tire to Martinsville, it would work out. But that's also not how it works, because the Bristol tire that everyone loves ran last year at Bristol, and it was a race that sucked and people hated. So what was the difference? Well, rubber just wasn't getting laid down. But then last year, when we were like, how do we fix short track racing? People were like, well, if you get a tire that lays down rubber, then the groove will probably wind out. We get a tire that lays down rubber, and it's not improving the racing much at all, right? And now it's like people actually favored the tire that didn't lay down rubber because it was killing tires. I I, I don't know. Like I don't know what the solution is to that issue, right? You want a tire that lays down rubber, but you want a tire that wears out like the Bristol tire, and the only reason that tire was wearing out was because no rubber was on the racetrack, right? If we bring that Bristol tire back, which they're going to bring that tire back in September when they run at Bristol, and guess what? If it's warm enough that rubber gets laid down, it's going to be like last year's night race, where tires didn't wear out, tires didn't really mean anything. I mean, I remember a portion of last year's night race at Bristol where teams stayed out at the end of, I think it was stage 1, and they kept track position, right, on older tires. That it's the same tire that ran in the spring. The only difference, once again, the spring race was cool enough, it wasn't laying down rubber. So it's not the tire, once again, right? Same tire from last year at Bristol to this year, and the only difference was that it didn't lay down rubber this year, so it caused tire failures, basically. So, I mean, and even look at the Xfinity race this weekend, right? Sure, it wasn't great. Sure, it wasn't amazing. There was very little tire fall off, right? Tires didn't really mean all that much. It had cool temperatures, so rubber wasn't being laid down all that much, right? It was like in the 40s. It was just weather that was designed to produce a terrible race, and it produced a much better race than the Cup race. It wasn't, once again, great by any means. It was like a 6 out of 10 race, maybe a 7 out of 10 if you're generous, but it was still loads better than the Cup race, and it didn't have any tire wear, it didn't have much tire fall off, and it had a track that wasn't really taking rubber because it was so cold out, right? That's just how it worked, right? But, you know, and that's a car, though, that is designed to do, it's a more classic style NASCAR stock car, where it's low grip, low downforce, they're kind of skewed a little bit, right? So it creates this type of racing which is good for those short track style racetracks. Meanwhile, you have the Cup car, which is the complete opposite, and guess what? You don't have good short track racing. So it's just time to admit the car is the problem. It's not a tire problem. It's not a package problem. It is the car entirely, right? It is a whole combination of what the car was meant to be, right? It's just what the car's blueprint is. It was made to have high grip. It was made to be really good. It was just made to be a very good race car to drive, not necessarily to race. And that's a major issue, right? It is easier to drive. It has a sequential shifter, independent rear suspension. It has, once again, wider tires, bigger brakes, right? Diffuser on the car. The only thing that's really harder about to drive is that it doesn't have side force. So if the car gets sideways a little bit, very hard to save it. But just everything the car was made for. Spec, right? Once again, spec. That is a huge issue that people don't bring up, but it's a huge issue for short track racing in general. Once again, short tracks are the tracks that even under an old NASCAR style stock car would be, the field would be close. They would be very close in terms of times, but the field's even closer now because everyone's running the same stuff. Doesn't make for good racing. You need variety. You need differences in cars to create passes, and we don't the only time we have that is if they make a green flag pit stop, right? So you have to go a full fuel run and hope that it stays green so that we can actually see differences in strategy, differences in tire strategy, right? Otherwise, it is the same thing. If people come down pit road under caution and they all put on 4 tires and they all leave, guess what? You're probably staying in that same position if it's Martinsville because there's no differences. Everyone's on the same tires. Everyone's tires are falling off at the same rate because all the cars are basically the same. All the drivers are basically running the same because they have SMT data. So they get to, basically be told, hey, this is what the guy who's fastest is doing. You better do it too. And if everyone starts doing the same thing, if everyone starts driving the same way, guess what? Now you have a spec car, you have spec drivers, nothing is different. And it's all then down to the pit crews, all down to the strategy, all down to the track position. It is, once again, the car's fault. It is just the whole nature of what NASCAR has become's fault, right? Everything needs to be the same. Everything needs to be close. You have to have the most cars on screen as possible, right? We can't have someone pulling away, like Coda, for example, right? Where Christopher Bell is trying to run down William Byron at the end of the race. It's a great thing for someone who knows what's happening. But if you're a casual fan and you're just watching the broadcast, it's like, well, this sucks. William Byron's leading by a lot. Whatever. William Byron's going to win the race. And then William Byron ended up winning. That sucked. But in reality, that's actually really cool. Seeing someone who's faster run down the race leader with a little bit better tires on his race car. But then you go to a place like Martinsville where the top 7 cars are stuck in a line behind 33rd place Austin Dillon out there in the racetrack, and that's supposed to look cool because cars are close together. In reality, it just shows no one can pass, and the car is a piece of crap. So it's the car's fault, right? We have parallels to this in the past. Just look at 2019. Short tracks sucked. Intermediates were fine. All the unique tracks sucked. What's happening here? Intermediates are the best racetrack on the schedule. Everything else is suffering from this race car because it's designed to do something that's not meant to happen at short tracks or unique tracks. So, yep, you're not going to fix short track racing until you fix the race car. And how you fix the race car is basically change what the race car is made for. You need to literally make a new race car. So, good luck with that, right? There's so many examples that point to you don't need a tire that wears out, even though a tire that wears out is pretty good in terms of racing. We saw with the Xfinity race, you don't really need that. You don't need this, that, or the other. You just need a good race car. And the next-gen car is not a good race car. It's a spec car. It was just made to get the competition close. It was not made to produce really good racing in terms of the eye of a purity style race fan, right? It's made to attract the casuals because things look close and things are apparently, the playing field has been leveled now, even though we have, only 5 winners through 8 races, and we've had someone win 3 of the first 8. We've had 2 drivers win 5 of the first 8 races. So maybe that parity's going away. And after the parity, what redeeming quality does this race car have? That's good. That's a different discussion if the trends continue with Hendrick and Joe Gibbs dominating the season. But we'll get to that down the road if that continues. But it's an annoying time, and I figured I'd get that off my chest, that the car needs to have more talk about the car and not just about, the tire, the package. It's the car, the whole car. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it gets better.